A very warm welcome to This World Game Changers podcast, where your host, Paul D. Lowe, embraces many crucial conversations that compassionately contribute towards creating a better life and world. Paul's intention is very simple: to help get people's inspirational insights and motivational messages out into the world so others may benefit.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to this World Game Changers podcasters episode. And Angels with Dirty Faces, and this is the last one in the 8-chapter series, and we thought we'd call this one Mastering the Game of Life, because in doing so, there's 3 people on there. Obviously, myself and Gary. Well, 4 people actually, if you can count me and Gary. Andrew Batt, a fellow World Game Changers director, and a lady that's previously done a chapter with me and Gary, Rebecca Wheele, and we've all been in the Mastering the Game of Life book. So let's skip all the introductions, all the pleasantries, guys. Let's jump straight in. Andrew, Rebecca, Mastering the Game of Life. Gary and I are in your hands.
Wonderful, thank you. Well, I think Rebecca and I have got a few questions that we kind of put together between us. And I think, Rebecca, you're question 1. So if we want to dive in, let's go for it.
Yeah, cool. Let's kick it off. Okay, so we wanted to ask you guys, for anyone that's experiencing currently experiencing or behaving in similar ways that you were both behaving kind of early doors, what advice would you give them, especially if kind of they're feeling like, you know, they're at a point where this is it and they don't have any hope and they feel like they'll never get out of it? What kind of advice or hope would you offer someone listening right now?
If I can start on that, Gary, because I think you and I will come from totally different perspectives on this, because of what you've read in previous chapters, or what's been spoke about in previous chapters. Now, for mine was deeply rooted psychological issues, alcohol addiction, etc. And obviously Gary's was, around identity and the whole kind of casual scene, if you will, etc., etc. So what advice would I give? I can remember, and I've shared this with all 3 of you guys separately, those 3 immortal words that was taught to me by one of the world's great personal development mentors. And they are, whatever it is, learn to let it go. Now, that sounds simple. Well, it's all right for you to say that, Paul. I've just lost a loved one, my dog, my cat, whatever the emotional attachment is. But I think by having that focal point in our life that we can let things go. And in so doing, we release that negative, toxic energy that traps us, enslaves us, brings us down, depresses us, etc., etc. So that's my answer. Gary, I don't know what your take is on this.
Oh yeah, there's always light at the end of the tunnel. Like I say, I think the older you get, the more mature you get, the more wiser you get. You start off on the wrong path. Some people do, like myself. But, there's always light at the end of the tunnel. You have your ups and downs. Life's a roller coaster. You have to stick with it, things send you backwards sometimes. There might be a death in the family. You might lose your job. You might have no money. You know what I mean? But there's always good out there as well. You know what I mean? There's always light at the end of the tunnel. I'd say, just keep on right on to the end of the road. I think you'll find it somewhere along the line. Eventually. You know what I mean?
We've used that metaphor, Gary, haven't we? Where in life, like say metaphorically, we might be 3-0 down at half time, because of challenges in our world. But there's always the second half to play for, and has been written in one of the previous chapters, as my old grandma used to say, it won't always be dark at 6.
That's right. There's always light at the end of the tunnel. You keep chipping away. You'll get there one day. you know, but it won't. It won't happen overnight. You know, you'll have it's 2 steps forwards, 3 steps back, but keep on, keep going. You've got good people around you, surround yourself by good people, family and friends. You know, that's my way of thinking anyway. You know, there's like a good self, Paul, as well. You know, you're a medical mentor. You know what I mean? Look for help. You know, if you're crying inside, you know, look. You know, don't be afraid. You know, reach out, look for someone, look for somebody, look for some help. You know what I mean? You know, don't be shy. You know, it's out there somewhere. You know, you'll meet the right person one day that'll help you along the way. You know what I mean? It might take a while, but you know, keep on going.
And that's been a massive switch for you and I, Gary, hasn't it? Because when you think back to our younger days, there is no way that you or I would ever have done that, because it would be perceived as weakness.
No, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Weakness. You know what I mean? You're always trying to, I don't know, you're always trying to be the top boy. You know, in my day anyway, you know what I mean? If you go crying to your mates for help or whatever, you sign a weakness, innit?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Does that answer your question, Rebecca?
You're not allowed to show your weakness, was you? You know what I mean?
No. You know, and you know, Andrew, Rebecca, the work we've done around Brené Brown, you know, where she says vulnerability is strength, and it is. But there's this conditioning, this kind of masculine conditioning, this macho conditioning that, you know, and I've said it so many times in this Angels with Dirty Faces, these 8 chapters, big boys don't cry, and it's conditioning, and it's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. Because what I've learned is the real big boys, the real men in life do cry, and they're not afraid to show that vulnerability, because that is power and strength.
Yeah,
I think it's a lot better these days. You know, mental health. It wasn't around. You know, nobody spoke about mental health in our day, but it's out there now, isn't it? You know what I mean? You have a mental health day. You know, our company, Oakfield, they do a lot of mental health tutoring. You know what I mean? It wasn't there 20 years ago, but it is out there now. You know what I mean? So reach out.
Yeah.
Great advice.
So, love that.
That actually leads quite nicely into our next question. So, observing from the side stands, and you mentioned, you know, a bit of your past. I'm sure a lot of this is being covered in previous chapters. How there was quite a lot of violence in both your pasts, and to someone looking from the outside, they might perceive that you both thrived on quite destructive lifestyles. But it's quite interesting now, knowing you both now, that actually you're both the polar opposite of that. So, and you both seem to operate from a place of love and compassion for others first, rather than this destructive nature that you seem to have before. So we were wondering, what kind of tools did you use to switch from what appears one extreme to the other?
I've got good people around me. I always have done. You know, I woke up and smelled the coffee, to be honest with you, one day. You know, it's letting people down as well. You know, if I'd have carried on the lifestyle I had, you know, I'm letting my family, my friends down. You know, my girlfriends down, wives down. Now I've got a child as well. You can't, you know, it's not just about yourself, is it? It's about people around you. You can't carry on letting people down. You get so many chances in life, you know, and if you carry on doing the path I took, you know, eventually you're just going to run out of friends. You're going to run out. Family's going to turn their back on you. You know, you're going to end up in prison again. You know what I mean? Nobody's going to touch you, are they? You know, you've got to get a grip of it one day. Otherwise, you're just going to end up a mental wreck. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's very, very true what Gary says, because as you know, there again from previous chapters, you know, my path and Gary's path was very different. I've always been a loner, and I carried that flag on my own. But when the chips were down, I had nobody to turn to, which created like a self-fulfilling prophecy, because then it's like the deeper I got down, the more I had to dig in. And I was like, what I was really doing was digging a deeper and deeper and deeper hole for myself. And in the end, I couldn't get out of that hole. And that's why, you know, I've had 2 suicide attempts and 3 nervous breakdowns. You know, and even releasing that, you know, I mean, I'm well over it now, well over it, and have been for years. But that ability to say to the world, you know what, listen, I wear my heart on my sleeve. The world's going to judge you one way or the other. So let's get over that while I'm trying to fit in with the rest of the world. No, fit in with yourself. Fit in with yourself. And some people are going to resonate to you and some aren't. And that's fine. Because, you know, an old wise boy told me years and years and years ago when I thought I knew everything and I actually knew nothing. If you can count on one hand the people that are in the trenches with you when it really matters, you are a very, very, very fortunate man. Very fortunate man.
Shall I let you into a little secret? I tried to take my own life once. I swallowed about 25 pills. I was took to Queen's Medical Centre. 3 good friends, got drunk. I was very depressed after my first marriage breakdown. And I ended up in the Queen's Medical Centre after about 25 paracetamols.
Wow.
How'd you survive that, Gary?
It took a long time. It took a long time. It was a lot of healing. Like I had good friends around me, you know, that looked after me and got me out of it. I was very depressed at the time. It was about 1997. I cleared off to America, actually, to see my sister, and I got deported as well from America. So I was at my lowest ebb, marriage breakdown, went over to America, got deported on landing because they had me down as a football hooligan. FBI interrogated me, sent me back on the same plane, turned around. My dad dropped me off at Gatwick Airport, and 24 hours later, he was picking me up at Gatwick Airport. So I was at my lowest ebb in my life, to be honest with you.
Wow. I didn't know that, Gary. I mean, we've roomed, as you know. I really massively honour you sharing that. Have you put that out there before?
I've never told anybody. You said you wanted something
to
come out of the closet.
Yeah.
Come out of the closet. Well,
wow.
that is to come out of the closet. I've never told anybody. There's only probably, I can count the people on one hand that know about this.
Yeah. Wow. And isn't that massive to, you know, to kind of release that? Because, you know, there's that thing that we build up in our minds, in our shame, you know, about this shame of, oh, that's weakness. People are going to think I'm weak. You know, I personally, I don't care what people think about my situation in that. And I don't mean that in an arrogant way, but it's like, but you don't really know what somebody's going through unless you're in their shoes. You really don't. You know, hence that old saying, just be careful how you judge people, because tomorrow it could be you. There's a very, very, very thin line in life, and a very thin line. Gary, I want to massively honour that. I really do want to honour that. And it's not a tit for tat, because we both said that we kind of put something on that's, you know, on the line that's not really out there. Rebecca, you were the very first person I ever shared this with, if you remember. So you know what I'm going to say. Yeah. And we went, Gary, you know Bestwood very well. So Rebecca came over from Brighton a few months ago now, and we went up to, you know, where I used to live. And we're talking about, you know, childhood, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's where I used to live and blah, blah, blah. And I just as kind of, and I just come out with it. Yeah, and that's where I had my first sexual assault, in that house there. And Rebecca said, what? What did you just say? I said, that's where I was first sexually abused. And that house, the adjacent house over there, that's where with another guy. The other one was with sisters, but this one was with a guy. And it was just kind of almost, if you remember, Rebecca, I shared it with you, and it almost in a way like, oh, well, you know, when I go and buy milk, I go to Tesco's. It was that kind of, I don't know, matter of fact, wasn't it, if you remember?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Which was quite shocking in a way to hear it said like that. And obviously, you know, it was kind of, for you, it must have been something that you've let go of. I mean, I don't know, maybe you can speak about that, but that you've let go of a long time ago, or buried down. I don't know. But it was, yeah, definitely shocking.
Well, the litmus test on to see if somebody's still carrying it is listen to the tone and the energy of his or her voice when they're telling you something. The way Gary's just recounted that, If you notice there was hardly any deep emotion, to me, that says he's let go of it. He's dealt with it in his own world. That's the litmus test. What energy, not the words, because people can make words up, they can tell lies, but the energy, the intonation, the body language, the non-verbal communication, that really tells you where a person's world's at energetically. And, so, yeah, I think there's those two things. Like you said, Gary, we both said we put something on the table. And I think it's a very fitting way, not necessarily to be sensational of, these two big things, because in most people's worlds, they are big things in their own right. Massive, both of them, massive. But I suppose, the reinforcement of sharing those to our readers, to our listeners, is to say, look, and I've used that metaphor. You might be 4-0 down at half time, but you can still win the second half and end up 5-4. And like Gary says, there's always hope. Surround yourself with good people and do talk. Don't bottle it up.
I was very fortunate to have my first girlfriend that got me through that period. I'm still good friends with her today. To this very day, she's married, but we're still great mates to this very day. She got me through that, probably a turbulent couple of years, actually. And she got me through it.
Yeah.
So.
And I think on that note, Gary, it's worth singling out, yet again, thanks for that kind of intro. I want to pay homage to the 4 amazing women that have been in my life, because we talk about angels with dirty faces and some of the shenanigans, and the fights and all the silly things that little boys do that, dare I say, Gary and I arguably did to excess. But to have women around you and give you that love and that compassion and just won't give up on you, even when you've given up on yourself, that's massive. And I've had 4 of those amazing, amazing souls in my life that have been that. So, yeah, you're right what you're saying, Gary. And that speaks really about what Rebecca said, isn't it, or Andrew, about this language of love. Because there again, from our younger days, guys don't really talk about love. And we certainly didn't in our day.
Yeah.
That's put a somber mood and energy on proceedings. Maybe we need to lift this.
Yeah, that's all right, because ironically, the next question, which I still think you should ask, Rebecca.
Yes.
Although you've already just, both of you, very kindly shared that with the listeners and the readers. But I think you should read it out, because it's quite interesting that it's a question that we were interested in asking. So I think you should ask that. If there's any more shares, that's fine. But if not, we can then go on to the next question after that.
Yeah. So the next question we were about to ask, or I'm going to ask now, is behind closed doors. So could you share here one thing with us that spectators to your story generally don't know about you? So obviously you both have just shared something there very deep and vulnerably. So if there is, anything else that you'd like to share in response to that question, please feel free, or if not, we can go to the next one.
I think I've just answered that question, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And, not at the risk of creating a hierarchy of sensationalism, but what Gary's put on the table is fairly big in anybody's world. In fact, it's massive. Yeah. And I think similar with mine, I think actually there's nowhere to go after that. What we don't want to do is kind of create a catalogue of Gary did this, Paul did that, Gary did this, Paul did that. We've put 2 really big things on the table there. We've shared that vulnerability each. And from no other point of view is to say to, our readers and our listeners on this podcast that no matter what life throws at you, Gary framed it perfectly at the top of this conversation. There's always going to be hope, always. And it's, that's about framing the story you tell yourself. And yet again, Gary was right. Surround yourself with good skins, with good people, and let it out, because it's toxic energy, it's badness. If you imagine you keep eating bad apples, you're going to make yourself bad. You're going to poison yourself. It's the same with the words and everything that we do and all these experiences and the story. Oh, poor old me. I lived in victim space for years. I created my own illnesses because telling myself a story. Why does, poor old me, poor old me. So, yeah, Gary's right. I think we've more than answered that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's quite interesting that was our next question, and actually the conversation's what felt like very naturally actually went down that route. So yeah, once again, I think thank you both for sharing that, because that's a big deal to do anyway for in anyone's book.
Yeah, thank you very much. So on to the next question. Family and community have played large roles in both of your lives. So we were wondering, what did it mean to you back in your earlier years? And also, what does it mean to you now? Is there any kind of differences in what family meant then and family meant now? Any shifts that have happened?
I believe that I put my mum and dad through a lot, through hell, back in my teens, early 20s. You know, I'm hoping now, obviously, my mum and dad aren't very well at the moment. I'm hoping I made them proud at the end of the day. You know, I think I turned it round. I'm hoping I did. You know, my mum's now in a home with Alzheimer's. My dad's in hospital at the moment as we speak. He's not the man he used to be. But I'm hoping, you know, that I did make him proud at the end of the day. You know, I know I was a tear away and a nuisance when I was younger, but I think I turned it round. Hopefully, you know, they can turn around and say, you know, we was proud of him.
Yeah, I'm absolutely sure that is the case, because, you know, isn't it true with family generally that no matter what we put them through, it's very, very rare. You know, you might have squabbles and fallouts and arguments, and, you know, it's very rare to break that bond, that family bond.
Yeah. Family at the end of the day, isn't it? You know.
Yeah.
You know, you stick for, you know, it's blood. You know, you stick through thick and thin. You have your fallouts. You know, I've had my fallouts with my dad. I speak to him for 6 months this year. You know, at the end of the day, we made up. My sister had a word with me. You know, she said, "Yeah, we might regret it one day." You know, so I put an olive planche out. You know, we made up. Which thank God we made up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Coming to the end of their lives now. You know, it's going to be a massive impact on me. You know, when it eventually comes. But let's hope we've got a few years left.
Yeah, definitely. You remember, Gary, when Clough and Taylor split up and there was that big standoff and they never spoke, and Peter Taylor died first.
That's right.
And Brian's biggest regret was we didn't make it up. He's, you know, Clough said that if I could turn the clock back, the one thing I'd do is speak to Peter.
Yeah, I'm really pleased that we did that early on in the year. You know, I'm a stubborn so-and-so. My dad is as well. But thank God we've made it up, you know.
Yeah.
Thank God. So it's one thing I won't, you know, regret at the end of the day. So it could have easily gone the other way.
Yeah. So. Yeah. So in terms of my own family situation, like I've said time and time again, you know, I've very much been a lonely person. And that's been by my choice. That's been by my choice. But it's interesting. And I've been with a mutual friend of ours today, Gary, Gemma, and we've had this quite in-depth chat around, you know, how the winds of change are blowing and how that family unit now has become so critical to me. And I don't just mean the blood thing either, because, you know, I'd say that 3 of the people that I class as in my inner circle that are very, very, very close to me in my heart are actually on this conversation now. Now, there's no blood connection, but to me, that's family.
Yeah. You know, when you're talking about Gemma, I'd like to thank Gemma for all the help I've had over the last year or so with my dad as well. You know, if it weren't for Gemma as well, what she's done, she's been fantastic to my family over the last year, just over the last year. So, you know, full credit to Gemma as well. So, yeah, people, surround your people, like you said, Paul, surround yourself with good people.
Yeah.
You know, and what a woman she is.
Yeah. And I've got to say, from my own experience of life, which has been many, diverse, varied, from top to bottom, left to right, for me personally, that beautiful love that a woman gives, and I don't necessarily mean in a romantic sense, you know, like with my mother, my grandmother, and yes, the amazing women, 4 women that have been in my life, that's massive in the world to kind of, when the chips are down, keep you going. Massive. So that begs the question, Gary. I'm interested. What a great conversation this is. I'm interested. You know that old saying, "Blood is thicker than water." Do you believe that? What's your thoughts on that?
What was that, Paul? I had a message. I didn't quite catch that.
Yeah, blood is thicker than water. Do you believe that?
Yeah, I do believe it. Yeah,
Yeah.
Of course I do. Me a strange wife at the moment. I've been talking to her today. We're getting on really well at the moment. I'm still married to her. We're having one or two issues with my son at the moment. He's he'll be into his teens this Christmas. So I think it's going to be a very important period with him at the moment. 13 on New Year's Eve. That 13 to 17 is going to be massive. And obviously, I'm not living with her at the moment. I think it's a big void in his life. I see him most days, but me not being there, I think she's finding it a bit difficult at the moment. You know what I mean? So, but we're still married, and like you say, blood is thicker than water. You look after your own, don't you? You know what I mean? When the chips are down, I'll still be there. You know what I mean?
You do.
Same with her. Same with her as well. You know what I mean?
You do, Gary, and I get that, and I buy that, but I want to challenge it in a way that, okay, so yet again, there's 3 people on this podcast that I would stick by through thick and thin. Now, there's no blood relation between us, none at all.
Oh no, I count my friends on both hands these days. You know what I mean? I've got like I'm not into like having crowds and crowds of people around me nowadays. You know what I mean? You've got your close associates, that you trust. And like you say, you guys and the people that I knock around with these days, people at Carlton Town like Mick Garton, I class as true friends. One of my best pals, Mark Flint, Oakfield Construction. I've got another friend that I've grew up with that I speak to probably every 2 days. We don't see each other every week, every couple of weeks, but we speak on the phone every couple of days. I've got a mate in Sheffield that we probably see each other once a year. You know what I mean? But he's always there for me if I need him. You know what I mean? That's true friendship.
I hope when you see the Sheffield boys, Gary, you remind them that Forest knocked them out in the semi-finals of the playoffs. I hope you give them that little nudge.
Oh yeah, I remember your man, didn't you, Paul? So, yeah.
Good lads, proper good lads. Yeah, but they do need that reminder because I think it's indicative of all football fans. We've got selective memories. We tend to forget the more painful moments, and we highlight the glory days. So yeah. Next question, Andrew, Rebecca.
Well, I was actually just going to tack on to the back of that one because you guys have talked an awful lot about family there, but there's community as well. And obviously your communities back in the day, I guess, were your football clubs and your football pals. And I'm just interested to see find out how the dynamics changed community-wise, how you saw your community, inverted commas, or even maybe your extended family, but that community side of things, because I know that you both do a lot of work within the community to help as part of the good that you're doing.
My community has always been football. That's been my life. I'm still in football now. Obviously, it was gang related football originally, and we do stuff in the community like Paul does with Carlton Town. I class that as my community now. What I do down there, we've got a big game on Saturday. We're doing a food bank for Netherfield, Gedling Borough Council. We do a lot of food banks. Oakfield Construction, I work for, they're doing a big Christmas appeal every year. That's the work we do in the community, and I class that as my community. Nottingham's my community. Nottingham Forest is my community. Carlton Town's my community. So yeah, that's my community these days. Trying to help people rather than take. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And as you know, Andrew and Rebecca, because of the work we've done around the 6 human needs, what Gary's talking about there meets the highest of the human needs. So, for those that don't know, every single human being on this planet, bar none. So it's not a nice, fancy, convenient model that might fit with some people, but not others. This applies to all of us, irrespective of whether we're young, old, black, white, rich, poor, gay, straight, all the labels. It pays no respect to labels, the 6 human needs. And that need for certainty, brackets control. We all need that to a certain degree in our world. And the opposite of that is uncertainty or variety. So they're the first two. The next two is the need for significance, knowing that we need to matter. And the opposite of that one is that need for love and connection. Most people settle for connection rather than love, because love apparently is painful. It hurts, apparently. So they're the first four.
I've just been out to Pakistan. I just got back this week, as you all know. And I was absolutely overwhelmed by the people over there. Absolutely overwhelmed how nice they were. England cricket team haven't been out there for 17 years. They've had no sort of life over the last few years because of terrorism. And they welcomed everyone back. Unbelievable reception. Everywhere we went, absolutely fantastic people. And I'll definitely be going back there. You know, I was overwhelmed by it all, to be honest with you. I mean, look what the country's had floods over the last year. You know, they're at, I don't know, the lowest ebb at the moment. And to have the England cricket team visit, you know, the joy on the faces, absolutely amazing. I've never been stopped so many times in the street, people wanting photos with us. Unbelievable. They just wanted photos. They were just so happy to see English people visiting their country and watching cricket again. Absolutely fantastic. I was overwhelmed by it.
Yeah. So just finishing off those 6 human needs, we've done the first 4. The 5th one is the need for growth. Because if we're not growing, we're standing still. And while ever we're standing still, we're at the mercy of going backwards. And then the biggest human need is the need for contribution, knowing that we're giving. And this kind of, and I mentioned this not from any kind of scientific or psychology lesson or anything like that, but the power of giving to others. And that's really, Gary, I think, been the consistent thread throughout these chapters, throughout this book, isn't it? About, you know, no matter how the chips have been down for me and you because of our antics, there's always been that something there where, you know, we've given to others. Yes, we might have created havoc at the, you know, paying parallel to it. But at the same time, there was always that giving. And I think what's happened over the years for both of us in different ways, the kind of ratio of giving has increased and the ratio of being selfish and taking has decreased. Now, whether that's an age thing or an emotional maturity thing or whatever it is, but I think you get fed up of just living in pain and living in chaos and you know, and havoc and all that kind of thing. And I think you do naturally grow up and think, hang on, I don't want this anymore. This is stupid.
Do you think you could attach that kind of thought process to the 6 human needs, having just gone through that? Do you see a kind of, you know, that attitude that you had before, now knowing what you know with the 6 human needs, do you think maybe you might have changed your courses sooner or quicker if you knew about that at an earlier age, or you understood about it?
Yes and no. Yes and no. Yes is the bigger answer. And I say the no because it all depends who would have introduced me to it. Now, somebody would have had to got into my heart. The way into a person's mind is into the heart to gain that trust. And I don't say from any manipulative way, because you build that relationship, you share that vulnerability. And then when you've done that and you've got that trust between you at a deep level, then you can share insights. But if some psychologist had sat me down, I don't know how you feel about it, Gary, at an early age and start saying, well, do you know what, Paul, Gary, if you do this, if you just say, do you know what, shut up, leave me alone. I'm not listening. I want to listen to that.
I was the same. I was listening to nobody at a younger age throughout my teens. I was just listening to myself. Really, I call it selfishness, probably. You know what I mean? But I was just a young lad that just wanted to see the world. I want to listen to anybody. I never listened to my mum and dad, did I? So I want to listen to anyone else.
Exactly. And I think that maturity does come with age. I know that's a cliche, but I think it also comes with that leverage of pain and suffering, because pain's actually not a bad thing. Pain's a great lever to want to make you to change. What isn't good, and it's got no price at all in our lives, is suffering. It's got no merit at all, suffering, nothing. We need to stop it. So, you know, if we get us to a stage with pain, it's like, okay, this is a warning sign. This is something telling me I need to do something about this. And then if we ignore that, I've used the example many times before about going to the dentist. Oh, honestly, if I had a if I had £1 for every time somebody said to me, I've got toothache, and I'd say, well, go to the dentist then. Oh, no, you don't. I don't want to go to the dentist. It's painful. Well, hang on. Is it not painful that you've got toothache? Why don't you just go and have it took out or filled or whatever? Oh, no, no. Better the devil you know. Better the devil you know. And I think, Gary, that's been a great metaphor for certainly my younger life, and obviously getting to know you very closely, yours as well. You know, we just cracked on with it, didn't we? We just got on with it.
Right.
I think that kind of ties in nicely to what you were saying earlier on, Paul, that, you know, you got to that place where you got so far that, and so much pain, you just go, I've got to change something. And that's that tipping point. And I think you both got to it at different stages, I guess. But it's great to see. I mean, I like you said, because we know each other, I know the kind of work that you guys do, and it's just incredible. And most people won't really ever fathom how much you do behind the scenes as well, how much good you're doing. So it's if people don't know you, you're both very worth getting to know, both of you.
Yeah, I've just done a podcast, and I've just been reading all the comments. There's always negativity out there. I said when I did the podcast, people, you know, I told my story, you know what I mean? And it's basically what I did in my younger days, but there's always somebody going to put you down. You know, there's always non-believers that you can't change, you know what I mean? I've read a couple of comments tonight, you know, basically saying I'm not very intelligent and all this. And I rise above it now. I don't. Years ago, I would have been straight back on the internet. You know, I don't even reply to these people now. You know what I mean? You know, they go straight over your head. You know, they don't know what you're doing. They don't know you. They don't know what you do behind the scenes. Let them get on with it. That's my motto now.
Yeah.
You know, I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yeah. Showing that you're still the bigger man, Gary. That's what it is. You're not letting them put you down.
Yeah, just let them get on with it. I've learned to just let go of me straight in my head nowadays. You know what I mean? Carry on doing what we're doing. You know, you get more joy. I'm getting more joy out of life than what they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not worth any of your energy putting, you know, to even respond or think about it, or, you know, their own stuff going on, really, in a way.
Yeah. You know, I don't care anymore. I just get on with what I'm doing. That's the way I work now.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice. So, well, you two have been on quite a journey, not only in your lives, but doing this book. So it seems apt in the kind of final chapter of this particular book to talk about, after your journey, what about legacy? I mean, so far you will have moved through the book and this chapter as well, sharing little snippets of both your lives. Do you both feel like you're at the stage where you want to be creating legacy, or and if you are, what is the legacy you're creating, or what would the legacy be that you'd like to create? That makes sense.
I'd like to say, when I do leave this planet, that people think, you know, it wasn't all that bad at the end of the day. So, you know, my first book, it's all about what I did, you know, the troubles I got in and all this, you know, and I was a naughty lad, bit of a tearaway. I'd like to leave this planet when people will say, you know, he wasn't that bad. You know, he did his bit to help here and there. You know what I mean?
Not a bad legacy. Not a bad legacy. Well, in answer to that question, I mean, you guys, you know what my legacy is, because you've seen the Flow from Faith 4 document that I've recently produced, and that's to positively affect the lives of all 8 billion people on this planet within the next 4 years. People think I am absolutely off my head and nuts, and that's great. Like Gary says, you know, in the most loving, respectful way, I really don't care. You know, I'm driving forward in a certain direction, not because my head tells me, but because I feel doesn't even touch it, but strongly called in that direction. I know why I'm here on this planet, and that's it. And that's the path I'm taking. Amazing people that I'm involved with, amazing people. That was part of, and Gary, I count Gary in that massively as well, and why we decided to do this book. And hopefully, listeners to this podcast and readers of the book will find some inspiration, some hope. If I know it's almost cliched, but there's that one little thing, if there's just that one thing in there for one person, do you know what, Gary? That made it all worthwhile, didn't it?
That's right, mate. It's right. Yeah. If we could turn somebody else's life around, you know what I mean? Then it's been all worthwhile with the book. And I want to leave a legacy for my son, as well. I want him to, when I've gone, I want him to actually be proud of me as well and say, look, Dad did more good than harm.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Great legacy from both of you.
Yeah, beautiful.
A lot of work for you both, which is good. So you're going to be around for a while.
Hopefully.
Keeping busy.
Hopefully. Yeah.
See, I'd like to create a legacy where Rebecca becomes a Forest fan and she ditches this Brighton roots, this heritage that she's got with Brighton and Hove Albion. She leaves that all behind and she becomes a born-again Red, brackets Nottingham Forest.
When she visits the City ground early doors or later on next year, then I think it might happen.
I think so,
Interesting.
Gary. Yeah. Interesting.
Well,
it'll be interesting in April when Brighton come over to Forest, and that I think that's when your head will get turned. It's you can feel it. It's one of them, Gary. You can feel it coming. It's a bit like when Forest are attacking. That goal's going to come, and that's one of them. And so there might be a little bit of an internal struggle in the Wheele household with Rebecca's father, Steve, being a Brighton supporter. As you know, you've met him. And
what a lovely man, what a lovely bloke.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. Beautiful people. Apart from being Brighton fans. But, listen, we've all got a cross to carry.
Just that little niggle.
just that little pebble in the shoe.
So we've got one final question. There's actually, there might be we've got a footnote as well. So we'll go with this one first. Now, I'm sure there'll be lots of football fans that are reading this book, but there might be some non-football fans. So we've actually added in the questions some football terminology. So hopefully those people pick that up. But this question revolves around total football. Now, for anyone that doesn't know, it's a concept that any player on the team can fulfill any role as required, allowing for a fluid and dynamic approach. You might guess I got that off the internet, but it kind of leads into, so instead of having a total football Hall of Fame, imagine there's a Mastering the Game of Life Hall of Fame. So you've both got your big photographs up of you looking at your finest. You've got a plaque underneath the photograph, and one says Paul Lowe, one says Gary Clarke, and they're both followed by Mastering the Game of Life. And then what is ... How have you mastered the game of life? Or with what have you mastered the game of life? Would you want that to read underneath?
I'd like I answered the previous question, pretty similar really. That I go out, that people think, he did more good than harm, So, this boy wasn't that bad a lad, you know what I mean? So, underneath I could say, we know he was a bit of a tearaway in the past, but I think he wasn't all that bad. He had a good heart at the end of the day, he wasn't all that bad. So, pretty similar to what the question answered before, really. I just hope people think I did more good than harm, and I wasn't totally, I did more good than harm, really.
I think that would ring nice. Gary Clarke, Mastering the Game of Life. He did more good than harm.
Yeah,
Nice.
I've always said I'm a giver, not a taker. If I can help somebody, I'll help them. You know what I mean? That's always been my motto, especially in recent years. If I can help someone out, I'll help them out.
Fantastic.
I'll offer a humorous insight. So when, at the height of the drinking, you'd be out with the boys, and you'd play silly games and that. And I used to say, okay, what would be on your epitaph? What would be on your epitaph, on your tombstone, when you leave that football pitch of life? And mine was, seemed like a good idea at the time.
Yeah, it
But
all seemed like a good idea at the time, didn't it?
it all seemed like a good idea at the time, and then when you sober up, or
I know.
you wipe the blood from your face, and you think, maybe it wasn't such a good idea after all.
I know. I used to say, like, where did it all go wrong?
Yeah, yeah. And when they said that to George Best that time, where did it all go wrong, Georgie? When the waiter walked into his hotel room and he'd got Miss Wheeled on his bed, he'd got that suitcase full of cash and the keys to an E-Type Jaguar. George, where did it all go wrong?
Yeah, brilliant.
Wow.
I love George Best. What a character.
Yeah. And we've spoke about that, Gary, in earlier chapters as well, about iconic. You like to use the word mavericks, but George was a maverick, and not just on the football field. As Cloughie was, they lived the life the way that they wanted to live it. And to quote Sinatra, and I know Sinatra is a great one, has been a great influence in your life, but they did it their way. And for me, my parting message is Paul did it his way, but not selfishly, arrogantly. He did it his way for the betterment of others. And I didn't follow the sheep.
Fair play, mate.
Nice. I'd say you both be mastering the game of life then, with those two answers. So shall we go for the footnote? We threw in a bit of a random one at the end that may or may not resonate. Do you want to go for it?
Yeah, whatever. Let's wrap it up nicely.
Yeah, okay.
Wrap the whole book up, the whole chapter up.
So we've got a quote from the Tao Te Ching from chapter 18, and it's, when family ties are disturbed, devoted children arise. Does that resonate with either or both of you at all?
Because when you look at Taoist philosophy, it's very paradoxical, it's very contradictory. And whatever it says about the left hand, it actually relates to in the right hand. And I think that for me, I can relate to that, because and yet again, this has been in one of the chapters around, Tuesday night away, you might be away at, I don't know, wherever, Barnsley, for, you're getting beat 3-0 and there's a bit of a shindig outside. And, it's like, for me, why am I not at home in the nice, warm family and, love of my woman and all that kind of stuff? So that family thing, despite I think you need the dark to appreciate the light. And I think, when you've been through a life that's been colourful, you learn some big lessons. I think it's fair to say, Gary, neither of us would be the spirits that we are today if we hadn't have done what we've done.
No, that's right. I wouldn't be the man I am today if I hadn't done what I did back in the day. Like you said, Paul, earlier, I've got no regrets, really. I wouldn't have the friends around me I've got today if I hadn't gone down that road. I've got friends all over the world these days, and I class them as, great people. I wouldn't have met these people if I hadn't gone down the football route, or the bad times. You know what I mean? It's brought me good times. So yeah, it's brought me good times. The bad times have brought me back the good times. You know what I mean? It's gone full circle. I've lost you, Paul.
What Gary's just said there is a great one for Taoism. The bad times have given me good times. I mean, isn't that a contradiction? But it's true. It's really
true. It is true.
Yeah.
The bad times have given me the good times. So if I hadn't had the bad times, I want to be the man I am today, and I want to know the people I know today, like your good selves. So
Well, I think it's quite clear, obviously, because we have we know a bit more about what goes on behind the curtain with you guys nowadays. I think there's an awful lot that you both do that goes unnoticed by a lot of people. So I think to recognise you both as well at the amazing work that you do, I think it's important to have that in this chapter as well, just so that you have some of that recognition.
I don't think we could do it without the people around us either. You know, you couldn't do it all alone. It's the people that you surround yourself with these days as well. You know, there's a guy I work for called Mark Flint. The stuff he does in the community is unbelievable. And I couldn't do half the stuff I do these days without good people around me, like Paul, your good selves, Mark Flint, the Mick Gartons of this world. It'll be impossible to do what we do. So that's why what Paul said, you surround yourself by good people these days. And without surrounding yourself with good people, you can't do half as much as what you're doing.
Yeah, I think there's that inspiration, isn't there? It's almost, if you're surrounding yourself with inspirational people, it's like a game of ping pong or table tennis.
That's right. You bounce off them.
Yeah. Well, I'm very glad you went through the earlier days to get to what you're doing now, because I think it's incredible work that you're both doing. So,
thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. Rebecca, I'd just like to say I'm really appreciative of the fact that you was born a Brighton supporter and you went through what you went through to become a Red, because you wouldn't have appreciated being a true Red. It may have been a painful journey for you, but you're getting there, girl. You're getting there.
Well, I appreciate all the good work, all the hard work you guys are putting in behind the scenes.
Same with you, both of you, all of you. Yeah. Really.
You know, and everybody else involved in this project as well, from America, to Brighton, to London, to Nottingham, all the work everyone's doing. And it's all for a good cause. It's going to help grassroots football out. It's going to help world charities.
Yeah.
So it's all for a great cause. This is
amazing.
what it's all about. This is what it's all about. Trying to help other people. This is what it's all about.
And that feel-good factor we have as individuals and collectively of knowing that we're meeting our highest human need of contribution. And that's massive. So it's not just some nice fancy theory and philosophy. Oh, wouldn't it be great if I was meeting my higher need? You know yourself, Gary, the buzz it gives you, whatever you're doing, Andrew, Rebecca, whatever you're doing, knowing that you're contributing it in whatever way. And it doesn't have to be massive, in whatever small way your influence in somebody's life. I personally can't think of any better emotion, reward, energy, payback, call it what you want, than that contribution. For me, it does not get any better.
That's right. I get a bigger buzz off helping people and making other people happy these days than having loads of money in my pocket.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for answering all of our questions, and hopefully that wasn't too much of a spotlight and too much of a grilling.
No, I enjoyed it. It's very good.
Yeah, thank you for your vulnerability and sharing, with an open heart, and I really appreciate that and honour that. And it's been a great conversation, I think, hasn't it?
Yep. So Gary, I suppose that just to close out between you and I now, obviously as the the two main characters in these 8 chapters of this, not just the podcast, but of the 8 chapters in the Angels with Dirty Faces book. How have you felt the process? It's I don't know about you, but it's been to use a Rebeccaism, it's been an interesting one, but it's been so much more than interesting. That's your buzzword, by the way, Rebecca. Interesting.
Oh,
yeah. But how's it been for you? I feel like how was it for you? How's it been, Gary, knowing that we've co-created this, what I think is an amazing book called Angels with Dirty Faces? What's the process? Any thoughts about that?
It's been fun doing it. It's been really fun. We've done 7 podcasts, and they've all flowed, and it's been nice chatting. We've gone through the past and the present, and the future. I've enjoyed it. It's been good talking to everybody, and everyone's been involved in it. It's been good chatting.
Yeah,
I've enjoyed it. But it's been fun to do. I met some new people on these podcasts as well. Really nice people. Friendly. I've enjoyed it. It's been fun to do. And it's all for, like you say, it's all for a good cause. So there's no, you know, what can't you enjoy about that?
Exactly. It's all leaders. They say that all roads lead to Rome, but I think in this context, all roads have led to contribution, and it's probably a good place to leave it there. And just leave it there and sign off, listeners, the way that we always do on these podcasts, on these Mastering the Game of Life podcasts, on these World Game Changers podcasts, by saying, remember, the game's changing, and ask yourself, how will you respond?
Thanks very much for listening to this World Game Changers podcast episode. Hopefully you found it interesting and helpful. Drop a line to Paul at worldgamechangers.org with any thoughts or questions you may have, and he'll be more than happy to respond. Remember, the world's changing. How will you respond?